welcome to the 2021 Papua New Guinea Investment Conference, Mahesh. Lovely to speak to you. The reason why I wanted you on the program for the event was because of CPL's long-standing support for SMEs in Papua New Guinea, particularly the fact that you've included them in your supply chain. So perhaps we might step back a few years, because you've had several years of experience of encouraging SMEs and dealing with SMEs. When did you first start to seriously to work on this as a part of an active program?
Well, we've been doing this for 10 years now. When we say SMEs, our focus generally has been agriculture to start with, and really just not a farmer and a buyer relationship. We learned it the hard way, where we had to actually go backwards and work and develop the farmers, not in farming techniques, but in supply chain, in production planning, and also in the picking and storage and post-harvest processes. Even though there were a lot of training programs from various government institutions, a lot of the farmers we dealt with had no idea. So we didn't teach them farming because they were experts at that. So it was really post-harvest programming of sizes of the produce, the packaging. Again, when we started buying strawberries, some of the best strawberries in the world, I think, they didn't have punnet, so they packed it in plastic bags. By the time it came to Port Moresby, it was all sort of soggy. So we had to source, and packaging is a key theme of ours, with not only produce, but a lot of products that are being produced in the marketplace. So we had to buy in or fly in punnets from overseas for those sizes. So our journey really started about 10 years ago. And all I can say is just gone better and better and better. And the amazing stories about, how one of our consistent farmers was on his own back able to get a $1 million kina loan from the bank.
Wow! Just on the basis of being your supplier.
It's a great story, and he's responsible. We gave him some small funding to start with in the early days, just to buy some irrigation or water sort of supply things, and he paid us back. So there are some really great stories behind the success of some of our farmers.
So this is predominantly, Mahesh, through your supermarkets.
Yes.
Has there been any product lines from SMEs you've looked at for some of your other retail outlets as well?
Yeah, well, as I said, the journey started 10 years ago, but recently in the last 2 years, I've sort of started focusing a little bit more on my foundation to start expanding that base. And a few months ago, we were in Bougainville, and again, they weave some of the best baskets. So we flew that into getting into the artisan side of it all. And for Mother's Day this year, 2021, we had PNG made baskets instead of importing them, and we sold out. When I said to the ladies in Bougainville to say, how many can you produce? Obviously, they didn't have any idea, because it's a home trade. And just out of the blue, I plucked a figure. I said, all right, we'll take 500. They almost fell off the chairs. They go, wow, because they had made baskets, but the small town of Arawa, where we were, they can only sell a few baskets at a time. So they hurriedly made 500. We did a deal with the airlines to subsidize the freights, and we brought it in for Mother's Day in Port Moresby. So now the pressure is to say, can we get some for Father's Day? Can we get some for Christmas? So it's evolving. And only 3 days ago, a lady came up, wrote to us rather, and she's designing fabrics with PNG Designs. Again, we said, okay, she's obviously designing it and getting it done, printed in offshore. It can eventually come to Papua New Guinea. So we're going to launch that hopefully next week.
Is it through your Jack's stores?
No, this is just fabrics. We thought about Jack's because Jack's is still selling finished products. We sell a lot of fabrics through our supermarkets, actually. People take and make their own Mary blouses and laps and even shirts you can do. So we'll launch that. The other thing we were already doing spices, again through supermarkets. But the most sexy one that we've launched about a week, 10 days ago, was virgin coconut oil, we stumbled on in one of my holidays last year in the CPEC region, and we got virgin coconut oil for cooking. Um, the same coconut oil with a bit of fragrance in it for hair and body, which is widely used around the Pacific. So that's being sold in the pharmacies. Um, and then coconut oil, pure virgin again, coconut oil for a pharmaceutical use. Now, a lot of people, and this is what I learned when I was in the village talking to the ladies, that the old grandma's recipes, when they had cuts and burns in the early days when kids were growing up in the villages, they used to scrape the bit of the coconut and put it on the layer, on the cut or a burn, which actually created a film over it. And it actually, when I read up, it has actually got antimicrobial properties as well. So it's not only helps healing, but it also stops the infections as well. So we created 3 different products out of the one original product. So
what I wanted to ask you about the supply chain for this. You mentioned that you are having to do special deals on air freight to get baskets out of Bougainville. What challenges you had on the? You've talked about packaging, but what challenges have you had on the supply side as far as organising for the supply of these goods?
well, I think it's a very well-known factor, and we've said this in multiple forums. It's cheaper to get a container, when I say a container from Sydney to Papua New Guinea than to get it from the Highlands to Port Moresby. Literally 2 or 3 times the price. We were fortunate that Consort Express Lines, which services Bougainville, that's the only shipping line that services Bougainville, and this is the case of the Taros. We did a deal with them. Well, they actually assisted us because it's backloading the container. The container comes empty. So it's a matter of negotiating with them. With the basket cases, we were fortunate enough, PNG Air had put their hand up to sort of support us. But it can't be ongoing. It's not sustainable because, they need revenue as well. So that's the problem. Going back to the coconut oil, now because it's off the mainland, the poor girls have to get the coconut oil extraction, which is, just sun extraction, natural, pack it in large containers, jump on a little banana boat, come into Wewak Township, refill them into smaller bottles and sell them in the market. So we cut all that by getting them to stay in the villages. You do the production, which is your capability. We'll send up the banana boat to pick it up. It'll be stored at our hardware house depot in Wewak. And when we get a reasonable quantity, we crate it up and send it back to Port Moresby, where we do packaging. Now, it's sustainable for a little while, but as the volume grows, we'll start having issues. So I haven't thought that far yet.
And the other thing I know you're quite closely involved with is the supply chain, getting fresh fruit and vegetables out of the highlands as well.
That has really, really matured. In the early days, I think you interviewed me some years ago, where we used to actually charter our own aircrafts.
Yes.
Eventually, the airlines came online, but we're starting to have issues again. And the biggest issue is in Papua New Guinea, right across, is the supply chain and the transportation. So we're getting 2 chiller containers, 20-foot containers a week out of Hagen now, compared to a ton. So this is like about 20 tons or more compared to a ton we used to bring in the early days. So that's how the volume is scaled. Amazing. We've substituted potatoes, for example. There's 0 imports of potatoes. We're now looking at probably onions. We're going into different parts of the highlands. Chimbu province produces some of the best brown onions, for example. We're looking for garlic. So these are high value crops as well, like garlic and all that. And at the moment, it's all imported out of China. So if we can actually produce, it's produced there. It's just how do we empower the farmers to produce more and make a commitment to buy from them.
Right.
So the highlands and the central province, again, if you look at a lot of the other produce that we buy, comes out all the way up to Goilala and right up the central sort of province line. So we get things out of Wewak now, we get things out of New Ireland, now Bougainville. So we're trying to get into the different geographies of different produce. But sooner or later, we'll come to a block where the demand from us will actually start stagnating because there's only so much we can sell. So we will have to now think, what is the next stage of downstream processing? And I'm talking to the Bougainvillean authorities to look, because of the distance and logistics, to see if we can do some downstream processing there. So it's a very, very early stage. I'm not sure how, but this is where I think the government needs to start thinking, sort of say, do they actually start looking at some, all the big mining companies get all sorts of incentives. This is where it should, I mean, they've started freight subsidies. To some extent, it's working. It's not sustainable. But there needs to be some sort of an incentive package done by the government authorities to say, how do we entice downstream processing now? So that's going to be the challenge, because the supply will soon just kill the demand at the moment, because the demand is only a certain amount in Papua New Guinea.
How much of what you've been able to do is because of the comparative weakness of the kina as far as what imports are concerned? So is this an import replacement business you've been able to do, driven by the value of the kina?
The honest answer is no.
Right.
It's been driven by purely saying, if we can produce high quality products in Papua New Guinea, why would we import?
Right.
Cost is secondary, because unless we consistently support the farmers, this is again the learnings that I had 10 years ago when we started the project, is we don't want to start buying things from a farmer in the highlands, and then Brisbane markets or Sydney markets have got a promotion on a particular product, and that particular week we do not buy from the farmers in Papua New Guinea. Now, where is this poor guy going to sell his product? So, and that's what the farmers have always told me, to say, we'll grow things, but we need a commitment for the market. And that's what's driven it, to say, if we make a commitment, because the retailers prior to us going in, we're doing the same thing, and farmers were really cheesed off to say, and they actually stopped growing. And that's a fact. They stopped growing because they did not know when the retailers would buy from them.
So you want to have a continuity of business with CPL's group supermarkets in order to make it worth your while as an SME.
Yeah. You need continuity, and that's what we actually preach to a lot of the SMEs, to say, if you come to us, make sure you come to us next week, and the week after, and the week after, and the week after. Otherwise, we will not deal with you. Because as you know, as a retailer, we need consistent stocks on the shelves. Import is an option, but in our DNA, it is the last option. We'll promote the locally produced first.
And as far as the demand, you mentioned the demand before. Are you discovering in the consumers that you sell to a desire to buy local?
Oh, absolutely. We're getting a huge positive feedback from our customers, because a lot, and especially adding new products. We've given a challenge to our team to say, each month, find produce or vegetables which you grew up eating back in your village, but you've come to the big city now and you can't find it. And I'm learning as well the different varieties of bananas we've got, different varieties of green leafy vegetables we've got, and some are unique to Papua New Guinea. So I think the customers are very, very impressed with that. But there's only a certain number of customers we've got in Port Moresby, because our footprint's only Port Moresby.
Yeah.
So, and that's where I'm starting to worry that if the farmers really ramp up, we may end up letting them down unless there's a plan to actually carry on with the downstream processing.
What about the learnings with dealing with SMEs from your point of view? Obviously, most of these businesses are very small. They're in the part of the informal economy rather than the formal economy. So that must present challenges for a group the size of CPL as far as payments is concerned, ordering, all the paperwork and administration that goes along with that facilitating that supply chain.
It's a very good point, actually. Initially, that was the biggest hurdle of the payment system. But with digital banking now, what we've done is all our farmers must have a bank account. And great to see the banks have come online where, they've actually sent their team across to our back dock to register the farmers. And the farmers are much happier with that because, we're not the only ones who get robbed and stuff. These little guys get robbed as well on the bus, on the village and all that. So they're happy to just get the money straight away. Previously, we used to write them a receipt. They'd go to one of our shops, which means catching up public transport. get the cash, and then catch another transport. So it cuts their cost down as well. It cuts their time and production as well. So I think payment system has been really, really helpful. There's another point, but it escapes my mind. I'll come back to you on that.
Okay. I was going to ask you a little bit more about what sort of drivers, what kind of things have you learned about your supplier base as a result of this process, about what the nature of being an SME and PNG is?
I think continuous dialogue. We send our, actually it's amazing, we got a great team and they're all Papua New Guineans. Yep. And you know, it's a dialogue and communication. They actually go out and do outreach programs and actually talk to the farmers, you know, and a couple of them are actually experts in agriculture. But they're tough at the back door. And they say they want 10 kilos, the farmer turns up 20, they will only take 10. So because we need that discipline in to say, do not pick your fruits before it's required to. So specification, so training and education, and some of them have really actually, you know, taken it by the horn, really. So I think dialogue, and now actually I say when I speak at SMEs, is especially when you're doing a consumer product, like if it needs packaging and all that, come and talk to us beforehand, because you could have a great product and they buy shitty little bottles out in the marketplace, and you know, and they don't realize that, hang on, as a retailer, we need barcodes on it because everything has to be scanned. And they go, oh, I don't know how to do it. So we can teach you how to do it. The coconut oil was a classic example. It took us a while to get those barcodes and labels. So we took it all in-house and did it ourselves. So the packaging, the standards, and I say to people, don't undervalue your product. This is another thing I've just mentioned recently in the press, is just because it's PNG made doesn't need to be cheap. It's high quality product, you know, put up the price, which is affordable to the consumer, but don't shortchange the farmer just to make it cheap. So, and this is what I warn my team as well, you know, you can't keep suppressing the farmers and to, you know, just keep screwing them. They need to get a fair return so that there is incentive for them to keep doing the things. So I think communication and dialogue is very important. And we actually now are going to start, and it might infringe on some sort of personal rights here, but we want to actually see what the farmers are doing with the money they're getting from us. So I put the challenge to the team. There was a project that I was involved in Nepal some years ago with a multinational, where they would not support that particular village unless all the children from that village would be at school. Right. So because they say, if we're going to give you some commercial enterprises, what are you going to do with that money? You know, you don't want to go and buy a new vehicle or go and blow it away on alcohol and stuff. We want to see development, personal development. So my team initially were a little reluctant, but now the girls have actually overridden the boys. They say, no, we will do that. We will start measuring to say, okay, if we're supporting this farmer, are all his children at school? You know, has he got running water? Is there sanitation and hygiene practices being followed? So we're going to go back and back and back and make sure we improve the lives of the people.
The other thing that's quite obvious from the way you describe the products that you're selling is these are all products that PNG makes, just as you're not creating new products. These are products that PNG has been making for years or growing for years. It has a natural propensity to produce and grow them. You're not asking your suppliers to create anything unusual for the market.
No, that's the easy part. It's not something that they've got to reinvent. They need a surety of a market, and you know, we need to just give them the guidelines of what we want. So but I think that's only the tip of the iceberg, Andrew. I think we can actually get them to develop more and grow more. Like, again, go back to Bougainville example. When we're sitting having dinner, the lady had packaged, you know, turmeric powder, black pepper, white pepper, cardamom. All these things have been done in PNG years ago, but it just got killed. Either, I don't know why, it was before my times. But all these things can be rejigged. But it's going to take a long time where people will get confidence to say, you know, because they've been burnt. You know, they grew things, either the market didn't support it, or the buyers didn't support it, or the environment just didn't do it. So we need to build a confidence back in the community to say, you know, get back into the farm. We got some of the most fertile land, develop it, but we will help you do it. That's why I'm doing a lot of these things outside the main operating company of CPL, into the foundation, so we can actually spend some money as a community development exercise and commercialize it and put it back into the main trading company, which we've done incidentally when you talk about SMEs, with some startups in the technology field as well. A couple of young, very bright boys have come along with certain products. The PNG Power payment system is one, which is Easy Pay. 2 years ago, this youngster came along, had his own machine, did all the research, built up all the platforms, and he sheepishly came to me, say, would you pilot one? I said, okay, go for it. Koki branch is yours, you pilot that. Today, we're doing huge volumes with him. And he's just grown and grown and grown and built the platform. He's going to different, I can't disclose it right now, but we've just signed another deal with him. He's doing another payment system for international NGO organization.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I think what we want to be is the guinea pigs of, you got something amazing, we're willing to try it, we'll give it a go.
I noticed you've also done that with home delivery packages. For example, if I go to your website and order groceries, I can have them in Moresby delivered to my home or my office.
Yeah,
I believe that's a partnership with a local company as well. Is
yes,
that right?
yeah, it's a company called GoFood, which again started with restaurant meals to start with, and they wanted to get into grocery and set up their own store. And we said, no, we've got the stores, let's just combine the thing. So that's again is taken off really well. Another one I just remembered is another youngster I met at the SME conference, and he had an app for a taxi service. It's not quite like Uber, but you can book taxi online. The drivers are disciplined. The customer and the driver has got an app which is linked directly to the police station in case of any issues. And he was looking for a pilot. And when we said, listen, we'll hire 30 or 40 taxis of yours every day of the year, parked outside our store, and you drop our staff off. Because traditionally we hired buses, and most of our staff are female, and the night shift girls, they used to always be having hassles when they're going home because the buses don't go down the feeder roads.
No.
So when this guy came along, and the girls are much happier now, and instead of taking an hour and a half to get home, they get home in 20 minutes. So he's taken off, and I've just got to rein him in to say, listen, focus on this, improve this, because he's talking about all sorts of things at the moment. So again, there is a lot of new ideas and stuff. I mean, not new ideas globally, but new ideas for Papua New Guinea, which has been practiced all over. So all you need to do is create those products to suit the environment in Papua New Guinea.
You mentioned there's some great examples there, and I think maybe it's Odesh is the taxi app.
Odesh is the one, yeah. Yep.
You mentioned the technology, and I guess you also mentioned online banking. The infrastructure to deliver technology and the internet and internet-enabled services in PNG is improving year by year, and is getting into the hands of more and more Papua New Guineans as a result. It can't be too far away where we have a lot of genuine e-commerce. Do you see that also benefiting your supply chain as well, and particularly the SMEs that you deal with?
Yeah, I think especially in the remoter areas, because there's multiple facets to that technology. Firstly, I think a fair trade system, whereby a lot of the farmers don't know what the market price is. For example, if they're selling strawberries or onions and things, there's an aggregator in the middle who we buy from. We don't know if the farmers are getting a fair run or not. So if we had a pricing system which is on the board for everybody, and I've been talking to actually somebody who's got an international presence. It's an organization which has created smartphones which can actually work offline as well. It eventually bungs into a payment system, so they're not quite there yet, but it gives you farmers a blockchain technology to do that. So I think there's a lot of potential in that. We've already starting to maybe pilot in Booker, again, a youngster who's created this software, and by chance ran into us, and he was looking for a 25,000 kina startup. And he had to go through all these applications with the AusAid or various organizations. And when we found out it was that amount, we said, listen, we'll fund it. And when we're buying taros from Bougainville, we can actually geolocate where the farmer comes from. So he's got the whole tracking system done. So we need to now evolve on that to start, can we do a payment system? Can we do education on that? Can we actually do trading on that platform as well? So it will evolve for sure.
Mahesh, I really appreciate you sharing the benefits of your experience in this area. I think it's very exciting what you've been doing, and I think what it shows is the enormous potential for developing SMEs in PNG, starting from a relatively low bar, are we not?
Mm, mm. Well, the thing is, it always goes up, right? There's only one way. It's up because we started at the bottom. It's a hard yakka, but I think if you persevere with it, you'll see the fruits of the labor. It definitely is there.